Welcome to Shop Talks 2021 trade show. Who thought that would ever happen again, right? So Shop Talks is a presentation of the In Kitchen, where I'm from, which is mostly online and sometimes in person like this, repository for decoration information by decorators for decorators. It's for all free. And we're sponsored by Impressions Magazine and the folks that put the show on. Sponsored by Hanes, sponsored by Hirsch Solutions. I have with me my two pals here. We have my phone. I have here Jason Murphy, who's part of the decoration team at Sanmar. And I have Josh Ellsworth, who's the sales and marketing guy for Stahls, who are right over there. Sanmar is on the far side. So if you want to check that out, we're going to have a little bit of presentation about, I guess you might say, the future of transfers, which are now, and the future of transfers to come. And they'll both talk a little bit, and then we'll have time for questions. And we'll be here not only to hang out, but there will be free beer at 4 o'clock right here, and music. Anyway, thanks for coming. Take it away, Josh.
All right, how's everybody doing? All right? Doing good? You worn out yet? We're the only thing that stands between you guys and beer, so we'll try to keep it entertaining and have a good time. So the topic is the state of transfers and the future of transfers, and for us, this is an exciting one. I've been working in this industry in heat printing, in heat transfer for 20 years, and I know it's been around a lot longer than that, but I've been able to see this thing evolve from a perception standpoint. And to me, that's everything. And so when we think about the state of transfers now, we see transfers used on the highest levels, the biggest brands, the biggest fields, the biggest stadiums. And to me, that's one of the first most important things to recognize is really just, yes, the quality of transfers have changed, but over the last 20 years, the perception of a heat transfer has changed. So you don't turn up your nose anymore when you hear a heat transfer like we used to get, and we had to convince everybody. I promise it's good. You start to get that different perception of quality. So I think we're finally in the day and age where we can start to market it as a heat transfer and heat printing for what the product is and not try to hide that from customers.
Yeah, so I got to second that. I mean, I've been around it's my 28th year in the industry, and I go back to the old Farrah Fawcett days. We were talking about the transfer that was peeling off, or you walk through the mall and you got that pixelated picture of your kids that they printed out. You know, that's kind of where I started with heat transfer. And it has come so far that if there's anything I can tell you about heat transfer, so how many screen printers do we got? Okay. How many own heat transfer machines? Excellent. I like that. Embroiders? Okay. Do they, okay, same people. So everybody has a heat transfer machine. For those of you who don't, a heat transfer machine is the single most important piece that you're going to put in your shop. It's the least expensive that you're going to spend, and you're going to get more ROI out of that thing because of today's fabrics. You know, so coming from Sanmar, where we're developing polys and tri-blends and all this new soft, really neat stuff, well, guess what? We have to put heat and pressure on these things. It's not always fun. They don't always work. So we go to folks like Stahls, we go to folks like Caesar, and we talk to them. We say, okay, we're coming out with this kind of fabric. What do you got? You know, so back in the day when we started, because we both worked at the same company for a lot of years, we're talking 365, 375 degrees to apply a transfer. That was the original days. Now they got stuff going on at 290, 275, 10 seconds, hot peel. That is making transfers so much more viable. And for you screen printers out there, who wants to screen print a very expensive backpack? Okay, nobody wants to screen print a North Face jacket, right? Nope. Soft shells, heat transfer. That is the way. And then I'm going to bust Josh about this again. Waterproof stuff. That's next. We're going to work on this. Because who wants to poke holes into a waterproof garment? Okay, then you got to reseal it from the back with a laminate. That's not always fun and easy. So for those of you who are doing decoration, heat transfer, learn it. Spend the time, go online, go to the seminars that these people put on, and really learn about transfers because they will change your production.
So Josh, what do you got that even you're excited about? I know you're coming out with new stuff all the time. Certainly you should talk about the hat machine, which I'm excited about, which came out in the last couple of years. What applications, what transfers, what about it? Like, what are you excited about your own products?
So, I guess 2 words, right? I think tech and texture. And tech meaning technical fabrics, and texture, pretty obvious. But when we track sales in every way you would imagine, but the most important one, I think, is sales and products after somebody invests in a new heat press machine, and we look at really their success with that heat press machine and what they're buying. And from a product purchase standpoint, we see the most successful customers by conversion in dollars. For our machine, the number one by far is the 360 IQ, which is our bottom heat hat press. The reason why is, number one, it solves a real challenge for decorating headwear. We're not getting those creases, right? So for those of you that like your caps, I see a couple in the audience here today with some fresh caps. Nobody wants to put that under a heat press and crease it or scorch it. So it immediately solves that issue. But more than that, I think, or in addition to that, it gives you the capability to do texture and dimension. And there is a whole bunch, I'm struggling for the word, a whole bunch, real technical term there, of products that keep coming out to feed through as dimensional. We can talk about some of those. When I look at our sales, one of the fastest growing by far is leather patches. It seems like the market can't get enough leather patches, and so we're seeing a lot of growth in that, or the faux leather patches. Of course, embroidered patches, I think those will always be a staple, and so we see a lot of that. We're seeing combining embroidery with sublimation, so we get the best of both worlds, where we can have gradients and fades but still have that authentic look of embroidery.
Don't forget about flex style.
And yeah, flex style is another one. And so flex style is another dimensional logo that's more of a molded logo that comes in a lot of different styles. And so we see people using that not only for headwear, but using that heat press, which heats from underneath, to decorate a variety of pieces, to heat print practically anything, right? From left chest logos on to performance textiles to jackets, you name it. They take one logo, one small footprint heat press, and they have a customization business.
So, Jason, what are you seeing out there that you've been excited about in terms of equipment or transfers?
So I would say for me, the biggest thing that's been developed is the under-over heat, bottom-up heat. And it's going to be everything from the head pieces, for the 360 IQ to the flat presses. So think about it this way. If you have a sensitive shirt, you need to put a transfer on it, and you scorch it, right? Oh, man, now that's ruined. I can throw it away. I got to get another one that costs me money. If you're heating a shirt with the majority of the heat coming on the inside, what are you scorching? The inside of the shirt. Who cares? They're not going to see that. They're not going to feel a difference. Put all the heat on the bottom and have it come up. Now, it does take a little practice, right? And that's something I know Stahls has the power platens, as well as their 360 IQ. There's a couple other manufacturers that are doing it. But honestly, for a heat press today, spend the money. It will make your life so easy applying to these sensitive fabrics. So tri-blends, polyester, spun polyesters, some of the recycled products we have on the market that's post-consumer plastic, those are a little more sensitive, so you want to have a lower heating element.
So he mentioned textures. What are you seeing out there in terms of like types of transfers that can go on that might have a different look for people?
I would say, we do our territory manager samples. If any of you have had a Sanmar territory manager come in and show decorated samples, we try to stay on top of what's new. Leather is not going away. Laser etched, embroidered, faux leather, it is so hot. And you're seeing it on everywhere from fashion to outdoor street, extreme wear, you're hiking, and it's literally everywhere. Woven patches. Everybody know the difference between an embroidered patch and a woven patch? So your embroidered patch is literally embroidered, looks like an old school destination patch. Your woven patches get really fine detail, right? So it's literally like a woven label inside of your shirt. They're making patches with the same thing. You also have sublimated patches. Flock that has digital color on top, and then a faux embroidered backing. I mean, everything that's tactile, that shows a different hue, a different feel, it's amazing. As a matter of fact, the show I was visiting a vendor, they showed me a lenticular transfer that was reflective. So you're looking at it here, and you see a logo. You turn it this way, you see a message. You turn it back the other way, you see a different message. That was cool, and I need to know how they did it.
So Josh, for your company, what types of products that people were having difficulty decorating or the transfers a solution for.
Certainly some of the performance fabrics that were noted, but as we head into fall, winter, I'll take a little different angle on it. It's really texture in the fabric as well. So you see a lot of the pieces, like I saw from one of our customers the other day, a Helly Hansen jacket, pretty premium brand, $384 MSRP, corduroy with the wool inside, decorated with a leather patch. Look beautiful, just small customization. Also, we see a lot, so like corduroy and those sort of textured fabrics. Sherpa, I think, is going to be another big one that's tough to accommodate, so making sure we pick a thicker transfer that's going to cover well on those types of fabrics for sure. So it's really thin, almost lightweight and stretchy, but it's also really thick and even rugged, right? And just to throw one back on Jason, since he hit me with the DWR adhesive, it'd be really nice if the apparel manufacturers would put the waterproof coating on the inside of the jacket, right?
So that is an absolute option. Here's the problem. If you put the waterproofing on the inside of the jacket, your fabric still gets waterlogged. It doesn't get through, but man, that jacket just gained 10 ounces. And all of a sudden it's like, whoa.
All right, accept it. We'll come up with something.
I know you're going to fix it. I know you will. I'd say, when you're looking at, remember we were saying, rugged and thick. So go back to the beginning when he and I were doing this, trying to convince these people, you need to buy heat transfer. What do they always say? Oh, it's too thick. It feels like plastic. It's terrible. So what did they do? They come out with thin, soft, and stretchy. Now everybody's coming back and they're saying, why isn't it thick and strong and have texture to it? We're like, we can't win.
Yeah, I want it matte. I want it glossy, right? And so you guys just want it all. We know that. So I think that's one of the biggest things about heat transfer. When you look at like the umbrella of the technology, I'd say that for right now in today's market, it's pretty difficult for shops to acquire skilled labor, right? And training for a heat press is really easy, and the assortment and the depth of product that you can apply with a heat press with very little training, comparatively speaking, is one of the reasons we see it growing rapidly right now.
I think there will be a day when no one will sell a product without the heat transfer instructions. So screen printing, which I mostly do, is dependent on the humidity and the temperature and the skill, etc. But a transfer, actually, with a good transfer machine, you know exactly the pressure, you know exactly the heat, you know exactly the time, and hopefully you've tested it properly and made it properly, and then every single time it will work, unlike screen printing that does not work every time. So maybe that's not an advance, maybe that's like a catch-up thing, but it's seems like it will come to that.
Yeah, well, you guys seem like experienced heat printers, so we know it's time, temperature, and pressure. Then it comes down to loading and getting it flat so it's ready to absorb the pressure. And that's where a lot of people mess up, is really operator error on loading the item and making sure we have that flat surface so the pressure is actually applying to the graphic and not to a raised seam or some structure on the garment. So that's really critical as you're thinking about your heat press investment, making sure you can accommodate a wide variety of items, but also load those items in such a way that they get flat, because you're going to want to hit. One of the advantages is you want to hit all these unique placement locations that are challenging to do with other processes to really fully monetize the garment and advance the brand that you're decorating for. And with a good quality heat press, you should be able to do that.
All right. So, good quality heat press. So what's next on the front of let's talk about equipment first. What do you, without giving away any, trade secrets, what do you think everybody's working towards in terms of, speed, quality, application, equipment that will allow for new types of transfers? What's going to happen in the next, 10 years or so?
Yeah, and
Crystal ball.
Yeah, and I'll give you some that has already happened in some shops that'll probably come to more of a mass level. So efficiency is everything, right? And so we've come up with heat presses where while the heat press is down, you're loading an opposite side, and that really helps your throughput and being able to print jobs quicker. But the other piece is like, how else can we eliminate downtime, right? And so we're eliminating downtime, but how can we place graphics quicker? And so we've been dealing a lot with laser alignment systems. I think you'll see projection systems with QR codes in the transfers where we're actually projecting the image down onto a shirt for placement. I think you'll see that come a little bit more mainstream. We've seen it inside of shops, and we actually have it inside of our own factory, but bringing that to market in such a way where it's built into the heat press, to me, is really interesting.
So, yes, and I can't wait. Right. That'll be amazing. Yeah, so you've seen that technology actually in the DTG side where they're shooting an image down on a shirt as you're getting ready to pre-treat it and print it. That's really cool. But being able to do that with a transfer. So back again, when he and I first started doing this, doing a jersey was upside down because you used a machine that drew out that you could actually get the whole thing on, and you're sitting there upside down going, okay, is that straight? And you put it down once, and then you pick it up, you put it down, pick it up, put it down. Only do that a couple of times because every time you do it, your head gets more crooked, and so does the logo. So just do it a couple of times to be done with it. But I think with innovations today, what I'm excited about, manufacturers are coming out with adhesives now that are super low in temperature, have really heavy dye migration blocking. So has anybody put white on a red and it turned pink? Right? That's a problem. It's the dyes in the shirts, right? We admit it. We know that unless it's a Sport Tech, which is cationic dyed, that has positive charge, it run a chance of it bleeding. It's going to come through. But all these new manufacturers or these new products have a built-in blocker. And that's amazing because that's making a lower temp transfer. And whether it's a screen printed transfer, a digital transfer, a hybrid, they all have better technology today. And it's exciting to see how far they're going because it's making our lives as decorators. And all the shops I'm in, with Sanmar, I work with just the digital team and decorators. So all we deal with are large decorators across the U.S. And we're there as a service for any decorator. If you had questions or problems, you can go to decoratorrelations@sanmar.com and get an answer to your problem. But having resources like this is phenomenal. And everybody, the largest decorators down to the smallest decorators, heat transfer is the fastest growing technique. And it's also the fastest growing technique in fashion. People don't realize when you walk into a lot of these stores, you're looking at these fashion pieces, a lot of them are heat transfer. And they look amazing, and you can't tell the difference.
So, the other problem I see in the decorating world is, especially with the rise of online stores, how do I know that the shirt I got from Sanmar, what transfer goes on it? So, as you get faster and faster of doing these decorating techniques, how do you get the right shirt with the right decoration and it goes to the right place? What's going on in that field?
Okay, so I think there's two parts of this, and Josh's going to go with the transfer side. But what we did at Sanmar is we've actually gone through our entire product line and did every measurable area that you can put a transfer. We have heat thresholds not to exceed. So if you're going on poly, you really want to be 320 or lower. If there's dye migrations, we'll have things to be mindful of, so you make sure you choose the right, whether transfer or screen print ink. So we're doing a lot of that behind the scenes. So when you log into sanmar.com, go to the product page, go down to decoration spec sheet, it will actually call out every decoration technique that's available for that shirt with each area. So when you take that information, and now you can go to Stahls and you can look at their stuff, and now you're going to look at.
Let me follow up.
Oh, there he goes.
But the other thing I mean is when you have Stan Banks Photography and he's got 130 designs and he wants to offer them on all of your products. So when the product comes in from Sanmar, how does he know which of those decoration goes on that shirt that arrived and then which person to send it to in Indonesia?
So I think the spirit of your question, if I can filter through it, is how can we create capable, confident apparel decorators? And so when we look at print-on-demand technology and we look at heat transfer, there's choice, right? There's probably too many choices where there's the paradox of choice where you get complicated and it's like, this is way too complex and you're spending all this thinking time just to get to the right product for a job. That's always in like the top 3 issues we see when we're talking to customers is how can we simplify and then make the simplified version even simpler. And to me, that only comes with the crystal ball innovation that is a universal product. So the industry needs one product that's good for a lot of colors or only one color that's good for 1 or 1,000 and everything in between that has an adhesive that adheres across the fabric base from 100% cotton to DWR, nylon, water repellent. And so I believe we will see that moment within the next 12 to 24 months. I really believe that where we're at technology and the advancements that have been made in this sort of 18 months of hibernation, a lot of businesses, a lot of companies have had time to really invest and take a look at their customer base and solve problems. And so I'm fairly confident that it will become simpler in time.
So you actually, you're way future. You answered my next question. But my other question was on work throughput. How do you assemble the decoration, the customer, and the garment that came in? So the software, not transfer necessarily, workflow. How do you, when you had, you know, 192 orders come in, all different garments, all different decorations, how do you, in the workplace, how do you put those together besides having a really sharp person?
Yeah, and software, number one. And so I think investing in a good software for your shop that's going to manage workflow and accomplish your goals. There's certainly many solutions out there in the market. Some of those come built in to your web platform, especially if you're doing client-specific web stores where you can manage the production workflow. How I've seen it work best, in my opinion, is you have to think of this on the sales strategy side, right? Are we setting up a long-term e-commerce store where I truly want to print on demand, or am I setting up a pop-up shop where there's an open and close date? In either case, I want to think about that through my design process, and I want to think about getting to batch manufacturing in the best way possible. And so how I see that working is you want to drive buyer behavior through deadlines, and so the pop-up shops or even timed products and items with expiration dates when they're not going to be available anymore, limited editions, really motivate the buyer, but also helps you to batch orders so you can manufacture them and group them in the most cost-effective way possible. So how we would see that is, let's just go through a web store application. We would set up a web store for Atlantic City Middle School, right? That web store would remain open for X period of time. Once that store shuts down, we would group all of the orders where we have the quantity in the design. We'll order out for screen printed transfers or screen printing if we have a super high quantity, right? But we're going to try to match all the design sizes in the setup. So we can batch them, we can maximize the screen that's burnt, and we can order the transfers to print them. If you have a print-on-demand solution like print cut or direct-to-film or a vinyl cutter and you've designed with that in mind, that's easier. You can print a million different sizes, it doesn't matter. But if a screen is in your process somewhere, even if it makes in making the transfer, you need to try to batch manufacture that. We order in bulk, and so your software should be able to group all the SKUs and the sizes. You can order from your vendor like Sanmar. You should be able to order the transfers in bulk, receive all of those. You should be able to heat press in bulk through your work order. And then really when it comes to the shipping report, that's where you want it to break back out to an individual order basis. So you can create what we call a ship hole. It's a memorable name, right? For every customer. So it would look like this. You would have a physical space that's set up with a bin system for the store, hopefully with some barcoding. And that would be your store level arrangement for that store. As individual products are done on an individual order, they go to that individual client's box or bin in the ship hole. And then once you are complete with that entire store, or at least we like to say 95% complete, because there's always going to be something you don't want to hold up all the delivery, then we would package that and ship it out.
So on that same note and that same concept, transfers where I've actually seen them used and used very, very efficiently is for company stores, but it's where they don't order all at one time. There is no deadline. It's I'm ordering one, I'm ordering one, I'm ordering one, I'm ordering one. Transfers is still one of the most efficient ways to do that because you buy them in bulk, right? You store them in a bin, and as people are ordering, if you have the right system, the right software, prints out a work order, scan it, it's going to come up and say choose transfer X, and you go pick it. You put it on top of the shirt. You get the next shirt, you lay it on top. You go pick their transfer, lay it out. There's a lot of times, so I saw a UPS store that was being handled by a decorator. So they would get thousands of orders, but they were never the same. It was, this guy wants this shirt, this guy wants that shirt. He wants those shorts, he wants this. And they would just, throughout the whole day, they would roll around, pick, pull. They'd transfer it because they had them all in a line. And they would go to the shipping, pack it, and send it out. And the great thing is, you can still stock the apparel, right? Because you're not committing that apparel to any particular logo until it's transferred.
Sustainable, right? No waste.
Yep.
One more thought on that. That works particularly well on the dimensional products because usually there are order minimums on those and you can't just print them on demand like in a one-off scenario. So being able to make sure we design with a common size logo that can be used on a left chest, on a hat, on a bag, across many variety and assortment in the store. Then you can stock them and you can use that inventory. It's very flexible to be able to pull and press on demand.
Yep. Get you better pricing that way too because you can order in higher bulk.
All right. Maybe some questions or? All right. Any questions about transfers? Uh-oh, this is going to be a hard one.
Inside out.
So the question was, customer with a transferred garment, do they iron that shirt inside or outside?
Always inside out.
All right, so the average person does not know that. What do you do about that?
So it depends on the transfer itself. Some transfers, if it's a polyurethane, you can literally go over the top of it with an iron. It's not going to hurt it. There's other transfers that are dimensional or sticky or made of a different material that as soon as that iron hits it, it's going to grab it. And it's probably going to melt it. So yeah, it's a tough one.
In my experience, I learned it after ruining one shirt. So, I mean, practically, you know, if you iron your clothes and you've ruined a shirt, you typically know to take some care there. You can get creative if you want to hang tag the garment. That's certainly an option when it's delivered to the individual buyer, so they know that. Also, you can do an insert, and you can even print a tagless label inside that gives some care instructions. Just depends on how concerned you are with it, on how much you want to invest to preventing that.
Many garments you buy will say, do not iron if decorated. So the comment is, I'm going to put a sticker on each shirt. Okay. He's going to try to cut his liability by putting a sticker on there. Good luck with that. It's a good approach. I mean, I think everybody struggles with how do you educate customers. So most transfers you can't iron, so what do you do about it, really, is the question. Any other comments about that, really?
No, I think it's just education, and I think most people that buy graphic tees and customized t-shirt, they have a general idea that they shouldn't be ironing directly over those logos. So I think they'll figure it out as soon as they touch it with an iron, honestly. That doesn't seem like a great answer, but I just feel like it's understood by most consumers.
You need more customers like me. I don't iron anything. So any other questions? All right, so the question is for on the spot, on location, customization, any tips on workflow, like how I can go faster, I guess, efficiency.
Have Josh
All right.
take this. He's the pro.
I'm going to give a class tomorrow upstairs. It's turning your heat press into a lemonade stand or something like that. So I'll give away one of my first slides. You know what happens when you go to a lemonade stand? You buy lemonade. You know why? Because you know what to expect, right? The signage is very clear. The pricing is very clear. Everything is very clear. That seems kind of elementary, but we miss it a lot, right? We want to say so much that it's just they can't digest. What are they supposed to do? So efficiency starts with processing the customer as quickly as possible. So crystal clear signage on what steps you want them to take. Ideally, that would be less than 3 steps. And then some workflow for them to be able to place and process their order, whether that's a well thought out paper form or a touch screen, depending on how advanced you want to go, but some quick way to get the order. And then from experience, I will say is have that customer come back, because the worst thing that can happen is you take the order and you can't take more orders because you're printing an order. So build yourself a little bit of a turn time so you have some time to print it. Depending on the event, have them come back within a couple hours or whatever it may be. And that will help out a lot. We've done a lot of event printing from all-star games to you name it, and we've tweaked it over time, and I'm sure you will too, but come up with something that's simple to apply. If you're pressing on the spot, small footprint, and then keep it super simple from a choice perspective and a signage perspective.
For sure. Yeah. Are you doing vinyl cutting? Is that what you're thinking? Mm-hmm.
But in one of the events I went to this morning, I learned about all the different trades from the express trades, and knowing that those can be like pre-made and have them on the spot. So now I'm just, I don't know, I gotta process it.
So the question is that she was thinking vinyl, and now she's thinking all the transfer options. So if she's going to do it, how is she going to do it efficiently,
So
so
he-
that you're not standing in front of the customer, all day?
I think there's something that can be said for having both options. Because you look at one of the things that Josh actually did this years ago is how important personalization is. People want it personalized, so they may have you may have something they want, but they want their name with it, or they want this or that. And this is not hard, believe it or not, to do. So one of the most difficult events I did. Any gamers here? No gamers? Okay, so there's this game called Call of Duty. They have a World Series. It's incredible how much money goes into this. We set up 2 cutters, 4 heat presses. You ever seen a gamer name? Underscore, at, tag, this, that, other thing. And it's not Jason. It's every other version of what you could think of. So we actually did, on the spot, custom gamer names with a pre-done flag that they could choose from for people that were in the tournament. We did 1,400 shirts in 2 days. It was incredible, but we worked all night long. But like Josh said, we had a limit, right? So it's like, okay, yeah, you can come back and get it later, and then that extended out further. Okay, you can come back get it tomorrow morning. You can come back get it by the end of the tournament.
Yeah, you don't want to be weeding anything more than a name. And pick a smart font, because you start to get into design work and full customization. It is an absolute nightmare. Yeah, pre-done transfers and designs. If you want something like super designed and like a graphic tee where they can pick a choice. Be careful of your inventory investment. Make sure the year's somewhere you can cut it off and use it again, and only cut the personalized names if you're going to take a vinyl cutter. Make sure it's working for your profit equation where they're adding money.
I would also say freedom of choice is overrated sometimes. And so I work with a big retailer, and they had just a frighteningly small amount of selections, and then you could just put it wherever you wanted on the garment, and they had lines out the door just to do that. People, for their customization, don't necessarily want to go that crazy. Like, you think they do, but they don't necessarily. Just that they can put it down here, or put it here, or put it on the back, or some upside down, or whatever. That's creative to some people, and you don't need to go as crazy as you might think.
Let me just give you one last tip. If you can pull this off, instead of trying to sell every shirt there, sell them in advance as a brand experience for a sponsor. And that way you get all of your inventory paid for, and you're more just adding to the event and creating an experience. That's a different way to approach events and selling, to make sure you're absolutely paid for the work you put in up front. It's not dictated by how many shirts you sell.
I will second that, because I know someone that came up with a whole system. He's from England. He originally was having a store where you would go in and design your own thing and everything. They totally got away from that, and all they do is sell that system to, say, for example, I don't know, some brand wants to open a brand new store, and you go and do that customization there, but the store paid for all that. Their money was in that, not in the customization. I know people that do events where they do live printing, where you get to print your own shirt. They're paid for by the event because it's a fun thing to do. They don't make their money from selling the shirts that the person prints. The person that prints it wants to take their time and all that. You're not going to make a lot of money doing that. It's hard enough to print shirts without a rookie doing it. So there's other ways, like he's saying, to get money out of that.
And you can actually get them to sponsor not only buying all the product, you can actually make money just to show up and say, I'm here with my heat presses, with my people. We're going to be this experience, so you'll make money on each shirt that was done, as well as just to be there. So you're going to get at least cover your costs, kind of thing. You know, one of the more remember we did the World Series of beach volleyball back then. You didn't go, but we did this. I remember it. So here we had the World Series of beach volleyball event in Long Beach, and we took a couple cutters, heat presses, and you had all the stars coming in, ordering a jersey for this person, jersey for that person. And then the next year we did the jerseys, and we also did a t-shirt bar where all the t-shirts came in blank, and people could come in and say, oh, I like that one, and I want it on that color. And it was an incredible experience. They love that freedom to be able to pick the color in the shirt. The hard part is making sure each design can go on each shirt, color-wise, because that was a little more difficult to deal with. But the unique part about that is it's not just t-shirts, right? So Carrie Walsh, volleyball player, she comes rolling in with a chair, fold-up chair.
Oh.
And she looked at us, she goes, can you put Grandpa on the back of this? That's what her kids called her dad. And I'm looking, and what's Carrie Walsh, right? So I'm already like, and she's the nicest person in the world. She's incredible. So we're like, yeah, piece of cake. We literally took this chair, unfolded it, stuck it on the heat press, and you got one guy holding the shirt or the chair, another guy putting the grandpa, and somebody else closing the transfer down. But it worked, and it's good. But it created an experience that we actually received emails from Carrie Walsh after that thanking us and putting it on her actual Facebook page that we were there doing it. So it was a really unique experience.
Other questions? Sir, the question is, loaded question.
I know.
Are silk screen transfers as good as silk screening?
Yes.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I'm going to go with some. They are very good. I would say today that yeah, durable. They're super durable. Honestly, so thinking back 20 plus, 25, a long time ago, I had my first transfer that I did on a shirt. I still have that shirt. And the transfer outlasted the shirt.
I think,
if you apply it right.
which kind of gets at, I think, something we were talking about earlier, which is people don't care what it is. They don't care anymore. They want the decoration on the shirt. How you put it on, whether it's screen printed or transferred, just doesn't matter. DTG, you can't tell the difference. Sometime pretty soon I'm going to do a transfer, a DTG, and a screen print that you will not tell the difference. I know that I could do that, and you won't be, and people don't care. They don't care. So there's different textures of shirts and styles. How do you decide how to do it? That is, I think we will have a, so how do you decide what transfer or what decoration technique to use? Well, one is that will depend on how many you're doing and what it looks like and a whole lot of things. That's where you really have to educate yourself.
Let's start with this, though. Most important thing you can do as a decorator is figure out what shirt your client wants, okay? Go online and what is the fabrication? Is it 100% cotton? Is it a 50-50? Is it a tri-blend? Figure all that out. Consult with your manufacturer. Call them, talk to them, go on their website, because if you tell them, hey, I'm going on a 50-50, it's a white image on a red shirt, they're going to guide you down the right path. And that way you're not going to make a guess. And that's the biggest thing I can tell you is consult with these people. They're there to help. They want to make sure that you're doing it right, because if they provide you the wrong transfer, then you're going to be upset, right? So it's in their best interest and your best interest to communicate with each other, and they'll help you get the right transfer.
Or the right technique.
Yes.
So, what time?
340.
All right, we got a couple minutes. More questions?
So
So the question was?
The question was, if you print a full block of ink with a transfer, you've seen some cracking before, does that mean it's not printed well? There could be a lot of reasons depending on what type of transfer, but odds are that it wasn't cured correctly when the transfer was manufactured. So I'd probably, on a cracking situation on a screen printed transfer, I'd probably go back to your transfer manufacturer on the quality of that.
And then the other thing would be if it was a stretchy garment and it wasn't made to stretch. So when you screen print, for example, certain fabrics you would need to add Spandasol or some product like that would stretch, make it stretch more so it wouldn't crack. Same thing with a transfer. The transfer would have to have those same kind of extra additives in order to withstand stretching. But normal stretching, I would say that's curing, like Josh said.
Hello and welcome to the Atlantic City Convention Center. Following the most recent recommendations by the Centers for Disease Control regarding masking, Governor Phil Murphy and New Jersey Department of Health Commissioner Judy Chili have issued new guidelines that now require both vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals to wear masks indoors at all New Jersey state facilities, including the Atlantic City Convention Center. This
Would have been a lot quicker to say, put your damn mask on. Anyway, what was the question? How long does it take technically to cure that transfer?
Yeah, so all of the science is done in the manufacturing of the transfer. It literally comes with instructions. It tells you time, temperature, and pressure for the ink formula and the type of transfer that you ordered. So I like to say, I do the analogy, the heat press is your oven. Did you ever go to the store and buy a frozen pizza? If you buy a frozen pizza from the store, they all have different directions to set your oven for. Same thing with the transfer. Every transfer has its own recipe for the heat press. That's your oven. And so just make sure you follow those instructions.
I second that.
And make
Follow
sure
it.
you get a good damn transfer machine, because
Yes.
if it's calibrated wrong, then everything will be wrong.
Yep. And I'd say another important thing to remember is, like I said, everyone, they supply you with the right way to do it. Follow those instructions. And if it's something where it doesn't seem like it's working right, I guarantee you they might have an alternate application instruction if it's going on a sensitive garment or something like that. So it's, again, communication. But most important thing I can tell you about transfers, no, they all don't go on the same. I just revisited a shop that was destroying transfers, destroying their heat presses because everything was going on at 350 degrees for 15 seconds at 120 PSI. And I'm like, excuse me? Well, yeah, if it's hotter, it's okay, right? I'm like, no, you're killing the transfer. You're literally cooking the adhesive and you're going to make it less durable. So follow the instructions.
Other questions? You bet. How do you compete with custom ink? How do you compete with custom ink who advertises on TV, etc.?
So that's rough to start with. That's rough. They got a lot of power behind them, right? So there's two things you could think of for Imprint. You could join if you wanted to. You could talk to Custom Ink about becoming one of their decorators, okay, if you really want to be involved in that. But I want you to think about how much.
No, don't do that.
But how much are they spending, and can you make any money doing that, okay? So I've been involved in those franchises for a long time. There's not as much money as you think there. Okay, the best thing you can do is provide the best quality service for the people in your neighborhood in an experience that they want to come back to you. All right, so when I had my business a number of years ago, we were Lucky Threadworks in California. My wife and I, our big thing was customer service. I want them to be delighted. I want them to want to come back and talk with us. I don't care if they want to come back and just talk. Tell me about their kid's baseball game, things like that. That's cool. I'm happy with that. So it's all about that experience. So that's how you're going to compete, quality and experience.
Can I add a
So the comment is that he goes to Custom Ink, finds out the price, and beats it, which he finds easy. The other is that pretty much every week I get a screenshot of something designed on Custom Ink that they don't want to order from them. So I think that's a few good answers for that.
Yeah, I had a couple more comments because I think it starts with the business model, I think, in the approach. So Custom Ink is kind of specialized, but when I view them as a t-shirt decorator, they're more of a generalist. Like, we don't go out and we don't try to compete with Walmart because we can't, and they typically win. So my advice would be start with your target customer. If you already have existing customers, figure out who are your most successful customers. You can have more than one customer. You don't want all your eggs in one basket. Segment your customers, and then make sure you're creating unique value for those customers. If that value is truly unique and your overhead is working for you, or you're running a lean model, which they are not, then you should be able to bring unique value, make everything that you do, whether it's on-site printing or print on demand or web stores, work for you in a different way to where you look nothing like Custom Ink and your offer is completely tailored to your target market.
I think that's a good answer. So it would be your maybe artwork, your service, and your delivery would be the first things to start with that will differentiate you.
So one other comment I wanted to make, because we had a little bit about pricing, right? It's always okay to compete. There's one thing I want everybody to be careful of. Do not devalue your service, okay? Because it affects the whole industry. You always have that guy in town who's just raced to the bottom. How low can I get? That does nothing good for this industry. It does nothing good for your own business and for the shop. So, we look at screen printing, how that was 15 years ago. All of a sudden, you had a bunch of people in town that were just racing to the bottom. And the reason they were racing to the bottom is because they used the cheapest products with the worst production, and it would get it out to the market, and then all of a sudden the market started to change. To get people like Rick and his shop, they did high quality. And this comes true with heat transfer as well. Don't devalue your service and your product. It's going to keep you better.
So I look at it like I look at the business as like a triangle. You have speed, price, quality. You can pick two, but you can't have three. I think it's impossible to lead in all three. I tend to pick quality and speed and really focus the energy there, because I feel like if you win there, then you can sell at a higher price all day and generate a cash flow positive business.
All right, other questions? All right, I think let's just leave it though a little bit. Like, what's the most crazy thing you think we'll see in the next 5 years in the transfer world?
Didn't prep for this one.
I know, I didn't either. Let me think about this for a second.
I don't know. It may happen on Stan Banks' YouTube channel. So.
It's good. So there's one thing that I've heard is coming. I haven't seen it yet. It's being developed overseas. Is a completely stretchable full metallic material. Okay, that I thought was really cool. But a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing right now, the innovation behind it, I was mentioning lenticular, where you can actually laser etch into an image into it that looks different from three sides. I think that's one of the craziest things we're going to start seeing. It's all about messaging. And I've seen it screen printed. I've seen it DTG'd. I was just visiting a very large DTG house up here, and they did a lenticular print with DTG. It was phenomenal. 3D, different kinds of fluorescence and just high vis. I think there's more and more of that coming. I don't think it's going to go away.
I'll go more process standpoint. I got two things that I'd like to see happen. Whether they will or not, who knows. But I think full automation at the heat press with like robotics and placement. I'd love to see it go there like we have with welding and a lot of these other things, because the placement, there's a lot of room for error there. So I'd love to see that become more automated. And then I also think that with that is like just it seems like a heat press is like a required part of the process just to do certain things. And I'm not sure if we'll ever solve that. Like, it makes sense. It's a really simple way to do things, but there's definitely speed limitations. So some of that will come with automation, but I think there's been some attempts at it, but some sort of carousel system or a high output for a heat press would be phenomenal in my mind.
All right, I want to thank Josh Ellsworth from Stahls and Jason Murphy from Sanmar. How about a hand for them? I want to thank Impressions and Hanes and Hirsch Solutions for bringing this to you. It's going to be free beer at 4 o'clock and music, and that comes from the In Kitchen and I think CIT Financial Group, whoever they are. And so thanks for coming.